Pilots of Reddit. What is the scariest moment of your career that passengers may have been oblivious to? ATC, Air Traffic Control, gave my plane clearance to take off on runway 35, north, at airport JFK while simultaneously allowing for a similar aircraft to depart from runway 26, west. These runways cross one another. We almost collided at 500 AGL, above ground level. The other aircraft was so close, I could make out the expression on the pilot's face. I think we can all make out the other pilot's expression from reading that. Not my passengers, but I've intercepted an unidentified aircraft that turned out to be an airliner. Everyone is always worried about the fighter they see flying formation outside their window. What they should really be nervous about is the fighter hanging out a mile in trail. If you have ever seen Olympus Has Fallen, this formation you speak of was not present in the movie when an unidentified AC-130 entered DC airspace. There was no trail A or C, so the rogue gunship shot down the two fighters. Knowing how this procedure works, the rest of the movie was a loss to me. Finally, my time to shine. Airline pilot here, going on 4 years now. I was flying into a small Midwestern airport in the middle of summer. On approach to the airport, we received an alert by the onboard equipment to climb immediately to avoid hitting another plane. Fair enough, climb as instructed, see the offending aircraft below us, and decide to continue the approach. On a 3-mile straight-in final to the runway, we spot a wall of torrential rain rapidly approaching the field. Looks far enough away that we think that we can beat it to the airport. About 100 feet off the runway, the rain hits us and we go complete whiteout. Can't see anything out of the windshield. Immediately start a go-around, and we get as low as 20 feet before the airplane finally starts climbing. Upon exiting the rain, and at about 500 feet, we finally are able to see again and get another alert for a helicopter right in front of us. This time, we are told to descend. All in all, the most hectic and terrifying series of events in my entire time in aviation. About 10 years total now. Now, I'm not in the industry, so I'm not exactly a beacon of knowledge, but isn't a TCAS alarm a pretty good indicator that ATC aren't doing their job? And to have two in such a short space of time? If the Delta pilots that flew my flight and landed on August 9th, 2003 from Atlanta to Narrated Airport are reading this, I want to say thank you for your balls of steel. You had me a little worried when you said, "We will make an attempt to land," while Typhoon Ito was passing over the airport, but you did it. I have never in my life seen flight attendants so much as blink when hitting rough weather. The flight attendant sitting up the aisle from me was strapped into her seat, looking out the window to her right in tear. The way the plane would twist, get forced down by wind, and then the engine attempts to climb to recover, causing the whole plane to vibrate violently was scary, but also pretty badass as to the demonstration as to how tough those planes truly are. The plane not only being blown up and down, but being blown laterally seemed like a difficult situation to control a plane in. I hope somebody bought you guys a drink afterwards. I was truly impressed, but I needed to change my pants after that. I similarly once was in an airplane that attempted to land at Hong Kong International Airport during a typhoon. Had to abort a few landing attempts, and the cabin crew were busy handing out doggy bags for people to vomit into during the severe turbulence, but somehow they managed to land the plane safely. Never have I heard the pilots earn a bigger round of applause for landing the plane than that journey. Since there are a lot of pilots here, is it horrible if I ask a question? Well, my whole life I've always wanted to be a pilot, and I want to know what I need to do to get started. I'm 17 with no job experience. I took a 3-month-long course on aviation about 8 months ago, and many flight simulators, and at the end of the program, we got to take turns flying a plane with an experienced pilot next to us for safety. Long story short, I really want to become a pilot. What's the best way I can? Is college necessary? Is it hopeful? Also, I've always wanted to be a pilot for an airlines company, if that helps. Like, if you were going to Florida, to Ohio for vacation, I'd want to be the one flying you there. I am graduating in May with a BS in Aviation Management and Flight Operations from Jacksonville University. I did the military track, which only took me up to a commercial multi-engine rating, but most people go all the way to be an instrument instructor, CFII. So I'm going to fly for the Navy, But I know people going into the airlines, and yes, you need a college degree. There are several colleges that offer aviation programs if you want to go that route. You can also get a college degree in something, then go to a flight school afterwards, but it'll be longer before you start making money. I actually started flying and got my private in high school. If you have some money, you can join a local flying club and fly with them a few times to see if you're truly interested. I know people that got to college, burned a few $1,000s, and realized flying wasn't for them. PM me if you have any questions. Commercial pilot here. Not at the airlines, but I did have a passenger. Working with a newer pilot, we were flying a VOR approach into a smaller airport. We were on with center, en route control, and were cleared into the airport with no other traffic in the area. We were flying in the clouds, and once we get to about 10 miles out, we started announcing on the CTAF, airport traffic radio. No answer. About 3 minutes later, right after a radio call, we broke out of clouds on the approach about 2 miles out. Just in time to see another aircraft opposite direction entering the clouds, about 100 yards off our right wing. Someone was trying the big sky theory and not talking on the radio. Scarred the life out of me. I hate those old people that don't need to, smartasses that don't want to, or unsecure people avoiding it because they don't remember procedures. Oh, RJ, unidentified traffic at your 11 o'clock, 2 miles, no altitude on crossing vector, report traffic in sight? Or gliders, I fly them myself, but Christ, in contact with approach when suddenly a glider appears, approach is unaware of illegal traffic, report filed on landing. Dumb people always ruin it. A friend of mine was flying his single-prop Comanche from FTL to Naples, FL with a couple passengers. About 10 minutes out from the airport, I believe a piston blew in the engine and it cut out. He had to make an emergency landing on a road in between some orange groves. Having heard that story made me trust him all the more as a pilot, though. Good question. I was flying from Boston to Columbus, Ohio, and in between us was a huge line of thunderstorms. In events like that, ATC will, in short, let you draw your own flight path to dodge the intense weather cells. The plane has weather radar in the nose and gives us a visual map of red spots to avoid. The flight was 3 hours long, and the captain and I were spending every second of that time flying up, down, left and right, dodging lightning and turbulence. Sweat was pouring down my face as I was using my best judgment on which direction to fly. We must have done a good job because the flight attendant called up to the flight deck to say all the passengers were sound asleep. That's awesome. I'm terrified of turbulence, so when the pilots try really hard to avoid the rough spots, it makes me happy. My mom is a flight attendant and has been since the early 1970s. She was on a flight home last month, and as they touched down, the entire window on the co-pilot side of the flight deck popped out from its frame and fell away. Luckily, they remained calm and neither pilot was injured. She has complained before about some of the bad mechanics that get hired to work out of the smaller hubs. My uncle was a mechanic at the United Hub here in Indiana. He had a huge alcoholism problem, and when the company became aware of the issue, they suspended him, with pay, and put him in a rehab program. The issue is, though, that it took a while for them to catch him. Scary, right? I'm a private pilot, and was flying 3 of my friends around when my GPS started acting up. I'd grown to rely on the darn thing and forgotten how to triangulate my position using VORs. Took me about half an hour to remember how to do it and figure out where I was. Not a near-death experience or anything overly exciting, but being lost in an airplane is terrifying. It's not like you can pull over. This doesn't 100% count, but currently in flight school, and I've got to say doing stall training. My only passenger was my instructor, who obviously knew what was going on and instructed me on how to do it, but nonetheless, being in a stalled aircraft dropping like a rock is scary stuff until you pull out of it. I had the distinct picture in my mind of an NTSB investigator standing over my charred intestines intermingled with tiny bits of aluminum spread across some farm in the middle of nowhere if I somehow never pulled out of it. Ironically, spin recovery was actually a lot less scary, just seemed like a roller coaster. In flight school, my scariest moment was when we were coming in on approach and the instructor says, "Today you're learning about unpowered landings," and reaches over and kills the engine. To be fair, I was so paranoid of that happening again that I was always prepared for him to do it afterwards. Although not a pilot, I was in the operations center of an airline as this happened. At almost exactly the midway point across the Pacific to Hawaii from LA, a 757 lost an engine. With the winds and available fuel on board, it became a critical situation. The aircraft had diverted to Hilo, but even then, all calculations said it would come up short. We went as far as to begin activating the crash team and started the crash checklist, preparing the manifest and such. Somehow, the pilots managed to conserve enough fuel to make it to Hilo. The passengers may have known there was an engine not working, but they surely had no clue how dire the situation was. This is because of that airlines won't let planes carry extra fuel thing that pilots complain about, right? Not a pilot. I wasn't even on the plane. I was at the airport waiting for a plane coming in from a long flight. From Hawaii? This was back when you could wait at the gate for incoming flights. They announced that the pilot had died en route and that the co-pilot was flying the plane. Now, why would they tell us that? My friend on the plane was told nothing. They had asked if there was a doctor aboard, who disappeared forward, but he heard nothing more and didn't see anything. It wasn't until after the landing when the passengers talked to those waiting for them did they find out.